Hey, I need your help. So there was a family, surname Street, and a Christian family. They decided to name their boy Saint. So his name was Saint Street. And wouldn't you have it? He ended up being a real saint. I mean, he was canonized in the Catholic faith. And you need two miracles, of course, to be canonized. And wouldn't you know, both of these miracles happen on a street. One time he's walking and sees a little kid crossing the road, and a car is just going right for him. He steps right in front of the car, puts his hand out, and he crushes that car and saves that little boy. And that happens twice actually. So that's the two miracles. And so when he dies, he gets sainted. So now this is Saint Street. Got it?
Yeah, yeah.
And it
I can see
just
where this is going.
it just happened. So it happened. So his miracles happen on a street, and so I don't know. I don't think this is too unusual. Maybe it is, but the Catholic Church is like, we want to give him a nickname because of his miracles, and so they give him the nickname of Street. So now this is Saint Street Street Street. Saint Street Street. Okay, got it?
Yep, I got it.
Okay. And then, so this is happening in St. Cloud, of course, and I don't know, right by St. Mary's there, and they need to build a new church, new street, sorry, rapid church expansion, and well, wouldn't you have it? They got a new saint, and so they're going to name the street after Saint Street. So now you got yeah, so it's Saint Street, and of course, what does the sign say? It says ST.
Nice. Did you come up with that all on your own? That's
I did, and the inspiration for it was Saint Germain Street, because I
yeah,
noticed
right.
it was St. Germain St. I
Yeah,
was like, how?
I hadn't really thought about that before. That's good.
So my what I need your help with is how can we make the name of the street even longer? I guess we could make his middle name Street.
Yeah. Huh. I'm gonna have to work on that. Yeah, you could put it make it middle name street. Are there other words that get abbreviated with st like state?
Yeah, I mean state could work, I guess. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. Um, I mean South, it would be a weird abbreviation.
Yeah, yeah, that wouldn't work. Yeah. Hmm. Mm-hmm. I was just thinking about how some of the ordinal numbers have an st on the end of them. This is the first Saint Street.
That's that's really good. Yeah. So of course, Eighth Street in St. Cloud is also Veterans Drive. So it could be First.
There you go. There
It
you
could
go.
be First Street, and then comma or dash. And then I got to thinking, what other fun street signs could we come up with? And then I thought of course, Kanye West's son is named North.
Hmm.
So what if he got
Northwest,
so it's
south.
Northwest.
Hmm.
Right. So what if it's Northwest Avenue, but it's on the southeast side of town?
Yeah, Southeast Northwest Avenue.
That's right.
There we go. I just was listening, looking for a podcast. I think I told you a literary podcast. I thought when I assign readings to my kids, it'd be nice for them to listen to some professionals or some people who know something about literature discussing said literature. And I pulled up a podcast. And what was interesting to me was, I won't name the podcast, but the discussion at the beginning reminded me of your discussion and mine when we're off topic. And I was bored to tears with what they were doing. And then it made me think, oh no, when we talk about anything other than Genesis, the people are like, come on, would they get to the point? But I don't really
Hey,
care because this is what we're just here to chat.
that reminds me of when Dwight finds a bud of marijuana in the parking lot, and he's interviewing all the characters of The Office, and he brings in Kevin. He goes, "Here are the symptoms of marijuana usage: slow, um, uninteresting." And Kevin goes, "Hey." So this
Ah,
conversation you were listening to that you're bored out of your mind reminded you of our conversations.
Well, I mean, it made because they were obviously having a good time, the hosts of the podcast, and I'm glad that they were, but I was looking for more substance at that moment. It did get better when they so it was a podcast episode on the first 14 chapters of The Princess and the Goblin, classic George MacDonald, and when they got to talking about the tropes and the relationship to uh, archetypal characters and whatnot. That was good. That was good stuff. It just took a little while to get there. So
Who, by the way, great storyteller, but also ardent universalist.
is that right? That's good to know. Because didn't we read some George MacDonald sermons for a little while? Did you and I do that or?
Yeah, I've got his unspoken sermons.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
pretty verbose. He's a great writer. But yeah, staunch universalist. And if you want a short or a novel to read about that, that would be Lilith, which he wrote. So it's pseudepigraphal. I don't know if that is not the right word, but fake wife
yeah.
of Adam, and
Right.
first wife of Adam, and she was no good, so God created Eve for her. So the story is about Lilith eventually repenting, and it is torturous.
So
But it does.
now, so Lewis, obviously big McDonald fan. I should it be somebody knows these things. Maybe you do. Lewis, I think you could see wants to be a universalist a bit. You could see this inclination in him, but he's not, right?
No, he's not. I mean, he very yeah. I mean, read the Great Divorce, right? I mean, he's
Right.
got famous quotes about the doors of hell are locked from the inside.
Right. But this tendency towards universalism, I think you can see even in this kind of apologetic phrase, something like "nobody ends up in hell who doesn't want to be there," which is it can cut two ways, right?
Right. Yeah. There's certainly something really true about that. But I know what you're saying. It's like if you only asked to go to heaven,
That's
then
right.
then you'd
That's
go
right.
then you'd go there. Right.
Yeah. Or that it's not a matter of God's wrath. It's just individual choice that lands people in hell, right?
Right. So yep, it really dampens God's wrath. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Hey, we do have a. We'll get to Genesis 27, but I think this is kind of on topic. We had a listener question, which is pretty good, which has nothing to do with Genesis 27, but it is a timely question. So the question is: in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, I have heard numerous comments to the effect that we do not know why something like this could happen, but someday we will. This is not an uncommon reaction. When a child dies tragically or a loved one suffers, we are told that God's plan will become clear, if not in this life, in the next. Is this true? And is there scriptural support for the view that God will explain himself? And the question continues with Romans 8:28. We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. And the comment there is it says that he works for the good of those who love him, but not that we will know why. Thanks for
That
the
that
question.
reminds me. Yeah, that's a great question, and that questions of why are interesting. It reminds me of this great video clip of Richard Feynman, famed 20th century physicist. You familiar with Richard Feynman?
Hmm.
He was. You'd really enjoy reading him and watching him. He was renowned for being an excellent teacher of physics. His illustrations and teaching complex physics subjects like modern physics, quantum physics, and so on. And somebody asked him a question at some point, and it was something like, "Why do magnets attract each other?" And he launches into this great critique about the question why. He's like, "What do you mean why? Do you mean how do you want me to answer that? Do you want me to say because this one has a north pole and this one has a south pole and therefore they attract each other? Do you want an answer in terms of electromagnetic fields? How far back do you want me to go?" That question why is challenging for that reason, and I think the same thing applies here. So, for instance, you could say, well, why did Charlie Kirk get assassinated? Well, because there's sin in the world, and a sinner committed a crime, and Charlie Kirk was a sinner, therefore he will die, right? So sin, complete explanation for the incidence of wickedness and death, right? But that's not what we're looking for when we ask that question.
Right. So that's the base level answer. The next level though is so it's really a stark comparison, but somebody shoots a bullet at Trump during the campaign and it's I don't know, half an inch away from killing him. And so the assumption in the question, which is good, is that God is provident, right? He's still providing. So if any evil happens, it's only going to happen because God allows it. So this is, I mean, it's a heavy hitting question. So why does God allow some evil to happen but not other evil events to happen?
Right. Well, so what is the use of evil for God? I mean, on the one hand, you can see in the cross that he is not only capable but intends to use evil redemptively, right? So he uses the devil's weapon against him. He's like a master. You ever watch sumo wrestling? That's another thing you should check out. These guys
Briefly.
throw around their weight, and the winners of it's very technical kind of wrestling matches. The bouts are very short, but the winner is the guy who uses the other guy's momentum against him, right? And that's a great picture for how. I mean, it's not a great picture. Don't picture sumo wrestlers. But when we want to know what God does with evil, one of the things he does is he turns it on his head. So that's useful. He also uses evil punitively, right? That those who lay a snare for others fall in their own trap, right? He uses evil in that way to punish the wicked.
Yeah, yep. He uses sin to punish sin, and it's poetic in a weird way. But what happens to murderers? They often get killed themselves.
Right, right, yeah.
Um,
So what's interesting to me about the question is that it imagines that there we would gain some satisfaction from knowing more about God, what God is intended to accomplish, when what God intends to satisfy us with is His fatherly providence, right? So that that in some sense, it's enough said in Romans 8:28. All things work together for good for those who love God and who are called according to His purpose. God gives me my days of gladness, and I will trust Him still when He sends me sadness. It's like it's all the same to me, actually, if it's from the hand of God.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, good and bad. You should receive it with praise, which is really a mature mature faith. Um, the Bible verse I thought of wasn't Romans 8 initially. When we brought up the question, it was 1 Corinthians 13.
Mm.
For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully. So that would kind of be the place where I would go. Like in the future, are we going to kind of see God's divine tapestry, if you will, like why He allowed certain things to happen? And I think that indicates, like, yeah, in heaven we're gonna know a lot, and it's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. That 1 Corinthians 13 indicates that. I'm hesitant to go too far in like imagining that because I think it's going to be very different from what we expect. And my illustration for that is always um, changing a baby's diaper. You know that the baby thinks very often, as you can tell by the reaction, that you're torturing them when you're changing their diaper. And what kind of an explanation is going to satisfy a baby? Well, no explanation is going to satisfy a baby. But when the baby is grown, they can look back and say, I see now how gracious God was, how gracious my parents were to me by changing my diaper. It's like, but the parents are operating in categories that are completely unknowable to the baby, right?
That's a good illustration because what comforts the baby at the time? It's baby talk. You blow in their face, Gucci goo. It's like
That's it. That's right. Yep.
so that's the explanation we get now. But then in the future, we're gonna be mature, and then we'll be able to handle it.
Absolutely.
But in the presence of God, I often wonder how much are we gonna. I think we'll care. But just thinking about the beatific vision, standing in the very glory of God.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe part of it is no longer feeling that need to know things that aren't that we're not privy to, right? I mean, think about how the temptation in the garden is not just for wisdom, but to be wise like God, right? So God certainly intends to make Adam and Eve wise, right? But not like Him, you know.
Oh, you don't think so?
Not in the way that the devil is offering, right? That you could be as wise as, or that you can have the wisdom, the fullness of the wisdom of God, so that
Okay,
you don't need Him anymore, right?
right. Yeah. I think those things connect well together Because why does God let Adam and Eve sin? Well, this really simple explanation is He created us with moral agency, and in that way we are like God, image of God. And so why is somebody allowed to murder somebody else? Well, what we do actually has real big boy consequences. So God's not going to stop everything that we do.
Yeah. So then this gets a little bit complicated, because you a couple of times now have talked about God allowing these things to happen. It gets a little bit more complicated by the biblical narrative when, for instance, we hear that God provokes some people to, like David, to carry out the census, right?
That's true. That's a more alarming thing to think about.
Mm-hmm. Right? It says that about David, that God provoked him. At one point, it's Satan incited him, but then in another, I think, it's like in 2 Samuel and 1 Chronicles. It's
well,
told
and
a
God
little bit
also
differently.
He sends an evil spirit to disturb Saul.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And there is something alarming about that, but I also think there's something a little bit comforting about that even the demons are still subject to the word of God.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Precisely. I was thinking about that, something similar in relation to the Gerasene demoniac. So I can't remember if we talked about this, but in Luke chapter 8, you get this: Jesus shows up on the Gerasene in the land of the Gerasenes, having calmed the storm, and while he's there, you know how the story unfolds. But what's interesting about it is that 3 times somebody makes a request of him, and the first time is the demons. Will you send us into this herd of pigs? and that always raises a question of, like, Jesus, why does he allow them to do what they want to do? And that's interesting to contemplate. It seems to me that they don't benefit from being in the pigs. They're destroyed in a way. But as the story unfolds, the Gerasenes ask Jesus to depart, and so he leaves. And then the man who was possessed of demons asks to go with Jesus, and Jesus refuses. So it's very often when you ask Jesus for something and he allows what you've requested, that you get your comeuppance. And it's the one to whom he says, no, you can't have that. That's the one who receives the blessing of God.
So that's a good observation. So when God says no, say thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And don't be quick to be like, well, to blame God for the occurrence of evil, even if he has not only allowed it but provoked it. It's like he's working for your good, right? If it was up to you, you'd mess the whole thing up. So just let him do it.
I think there is something to be said, though, that God gives Satan and his demons a fair hearing. So he's just. So you see this in Job, where Satan's accusing Job. He's like, well, let's play this out. I mean, he could have just cast him out there, but he doesn't. And so, I mean, really the metaphor of Satan, the accuser, as the prosecuting attorney, it's the day in court, and Satan's got a point, and that's the problem.
Yeah. It really is energizing, isn't it, to imagine that Satan is attempting to sift you like wheat, and Jesus says, no, he's gonna be fine. He's gonna remain faithful. He's got my faithfulness, so he's gonna be just fine. Doesn't it make you want to just kick the devil in the teeth? You're like, get out of here.
Yeah, I can't see him, so should I find a goat?
Yes, you should.
Okay.
Speaking of goats, you want to talk about Genesis 27?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. I have a question for you about this. Entertain this exercise. Contemplate the senses at play in Genesis 27.
Mm-hmm.
What role do the 5 senses play?
Well, I was gonna point this out to you eventually. So in verse 27, this is the blessing on Jacob, and of course Isaac smells. But what does he say? He says, "See the smell."
Mm-hmm. That's good. I hadn't thought about that. That's super relevant to where I'm going with this question. That's great. Yeah, see the smell.
So yeah, see the smell. So I mean, we could tease those out even more, but obviously, so sight. Isaac's sight is failing, and that means his judgment is failing. So if this is a recapitulation of Genesis 3, which it really seems to be, there's so many parallels. You got forbidden food, you got two trees, two sons, and then you got animal skins, sight, all of it's in play. Eve looks at the tree and sees that it's good, and that's wrong judgment. Isaac can't see, and that's going to cloud his judgment. And then the smell, I'm thinking of God smelling the aroma of the sacrifices. That's got to be the connection. And then there's touch, because he touches the goat skins, and yeah, the hearing. he hears Jacob's voice, but he doesn't put too much stock in it. He's just he's not going by what he's hearing at all. He's just going on the other senses.
Right. Including taste. This delicious food.
With delicious food. There you go. So he's relying on all the wrong senses where he should be
precisely
hearing.
That's right. And notably, all of those other four senses deceive him. They all give him bad information. He gets correct information from his ears. He recognizes Jacob's voice. And that's really interesting to me, because the problem is seldom that your hearing is deceptive. It's that you're listening to the wrong person. You're listening to the wrong voice.
Yeah, it's exactly in Revelation with the beast. Looks like a sheep, right? Or is it it looks like a sheep, a shepherd. And but it's the voice of a dragon. Yeah.
Or the devil masquerading as an angel of light. There's a beautiful line from At the Back of the North Wind by George MacDonald where I can't remember how it goes. Is the North Wind a character? I think so. And she says something to the little boy. Not every beautiful thing is good. And it's such a great line. The devil masquerades as an angel of light. How are you going to tell? You're going to tell by the voice. You can, and this is a remarkable thing that Jesus promises that you can recognize his voice. My sheep hear my voice. Right? My sheep don't necessarily see my face, at least not now, not for a time. They can't smell me, they can't taste me, they can't touch me. Right? Because what you taste is bread and wine, not the body and blood of Jesus. Your taste deceives you, right? But the voice does not.
So I was going to make a comment about Mogan David, but I'll save it.
Okay.
Well, I never drink that kind of wine outside of church. So you do. Although, did you like the communion wine at the seminary?
I remember, now that you bring this up, I remember not liking it. I thought it had a weird taste.
Yeah, me too. It didn't taste like wine. It took my breath away. It was really strong. And
very dry too.
Right, yeah. And was it Eastern Orthodox monks who made it, or is that just a rumor?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Doesn't surprise me.
I think it might be like special wine made for communion. There's another topic one day. Should we do that, or should we just use regular wine?
Yeah, that'd be a fun topic. And what about grape juice, Josh? What do you do if your church has grape juice? That's the question.
We should definitely talk about that. Because I want to we got to make an ontological definition of what wine is.
Yeah, and we also have a hermeneutical question about why that matters. When Jesus says wine, how do we know that he's being prescriptive, right?
Yeah, and then also what's bread. So,
okay,
I'll just give you my answer with the bread one, because some guys want to say you can't use gluten-free bread because it's wheat that makes bread, and so my answer is that so you're saying that God is in the gluten.
Interesting. I mean, it doesn't work, does it? Because you got barley loaves in the New Testament that are clearly bread, right? That's not
right. And rice is a kind of grass, right? I mean, it's so you can
cereal grain.
Right. I think there's part of the reason why he uses bread is because it's so universal. These are two universal things. Well, okay, this is grain and wine come up in this chapter, so it's not too off topic, right? This is Isaac drinks the wine that Jacob brings him, and
that's right. The blessing.
In the blessing, it talks about the grain and wine, verse 28. So this would be a good. I don't want to be a chicken. So Do you? I do. Maybe this is just to soothe my own conscience, but I do see a difference between non-alcoholic wine and grape juice. So that which was brewed and fermented as wine, and then they went through the process to remove the alcohol. Ontologically, I still view that as wine because it was made to. Where Welch's was never made. By the way, made by a Methodist pastor, or not? Was he a pastor? I don't know. Daniel Welch invented grape juice for Methodist communion, which is why you have individual communion cups because of the Methodists. Because grape juice is not antiseptic like wine is.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot there. So I guess maybe I tend to be less interested in an ontological question, and more interested in clarity for the sake of consciences who are not prepared to go through the argumentation, right? So I would say, yeah, you could make a distinction between grape juice, which has been prevented from becoming wine, and wine, which has had something done to it subsequent, which removes the alcohol. I think there's a distinction to be made there, but I would prefer a practice that leaves it completely without any question at all. And that's why I think the sounder practices, the soundest practice, give depending on the context, right? You can't just introduce things without, like, just because it's a sound practice doesn't mean it's the obvious next step. But that would be to put a little bit of wine in water if you needed to have something other than just straight wine.
Yeah, and I've heard that before, and I'm sympathetic to it. But then my question becomes like, how much wine do you need to make it wine? And then does that introduce cloudiness in it? Because then they're drinking water.
Right. Yeah. So there is an element of the person who's receiving it needs to be sure, and so it's almost like you need to, like, say, this is wine, is it not? Okay, and I'm putting wine in this cup, am I not? So that when you drink this, you are drinking wine, although there's also water in it, right? That's less obvious.
You sound like Jacob. I'm Esau, aren't I?
Right, that's right. Okay, so just while you brought that up, it's interesting because as I was reading through it, I was struck by how defensive Jacob sounds. It's like, no, I'm Esau, your firstborn. Remember me? But then when Esau comes along, he says the very same thing, but you can hear it in a different tone of voice, and it's interesting because he's kind of like he's what's the word, indignant that Jacob would, or that Isaac would doubt it, who he is. But anyways. I think whatever's done, it has to be done not accommodating doubt about what God says or intends to accomplish, and that kind of really narrows the possibilities, right?
Right. Yeah. So you don't think I'm bad for using non-alcoholic wine?
No, I don't think so. I'm just wary of anything that requires kind of mental gymnastics, right?
See, so for me, putting the drop of alcoholic wine in water seems more like mental gymnastics than using non-alcoholic wine to me.
Okay, yeah, maybe that's the way our brains work. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about if you assuage yourself with gluten-free hosts by saying, well, they touched the non-gluten-free hosts in the patent, therefore they've got a little bit of.
Get out of here.
Okay.
that's so dumb. Like either use it or don't, but don't try to say. And it never was a question. I never got them until I had somebody who had celiac disease, and food allergies are they're a real thing, and I'm comfortable with something that doesn't contain gluten as long you gotta limit your ingredient list down. But the definition of bread isn't clear to me that it has to have gluten in it.
Well, and it's certainly the case that, thank you, Joel Salatin, bread today with its gluten, with the kind of gluten that it has in it, is different from ancient Near Eastern bread and grain, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, that was a good discussion. Thanks for that.
Yeah. I got another question for you. You talked about Genesis 27. You talked a bit ago about God smelling the sweet aroma of the sacrifice, right? So try this out. Let me see if I can play this through here. it stood out to me that when Isaac sees Esau and asks the question, who are you? And then Esau answers, I'm your firstborn Esau. And then Isaac trembled, verse 33, trembled very violently, and then said, who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? And I ate it all before you came, and I have blessed him. When I heard him comment that he ate the meal beforehand, I immediately got the sense that he's saying, I'm full, and I can't eat another meal, and therefore I cannot give another blessing, which made a ton of sense to me when I started thinking about offerings to God, sacrifices and offerings to God, which are a meal for God. Now, in Psalm 50, of course, God says, I'm not hungry for goats and bulls, so don't think you're filling my belly with goats and bulls. But what he is hungry for is the heart of the one who sacrifices the offering. So when you offer the sacrifice, you are offering a substitute for yourself as a meal for God. God's devouring you. He's consuming the sacrifice as a substitute for consuming you, which he does, spiritually by faith, if you will. Which is why, of course, consuming the body and blood of Jesus in the sacrament makes complete sense. This is not like an aberration from biblical theology. Like, this just makes complete sense that you eat the one you want to be one with. So now think about the connection to blessings then, and also the crucifixion. So you've got this homiletically rich, it seems to me. So Jesus is offering himself on the cross, and God devours him. The sacrifice has been offered. God consumes the sacrifice, and he says, I'm full. I got no room for any more, which also means that the blessing I gave when I consumed that meal is the only blessing there is. I got no other blessing to give, which is what Esau experiences here. Like, if you don't receive that blessing with that meal, you're not getting a blessing.
That's really good. So the only way to be blessed now is through Jacob, who eventually leads to Christ. So now the only way to be blessed is through Christ.
That's right.
Not through the nation state of Israel, Ted Cruz, thank you very much, but through Jesus Christ.
Exactly. And that's perplexing. I think it's bothersome because we want to say, very much like Esau does, look, can't you come up with another blessing? I mean, yeah, I know that the older is going to serve the younger. That's fine. But can't you say something nice about Esau? And Isaac's like, nope. I only had one of these.
It's kind of like Balaam, right?
Yes.
So even if Isaac did want to bless him, he can't. And so here's my take on the whole chapter. I think this is a recapitulation of Genesis 3, and the whole point is to get Isaac to repent. So we're probably going to read this a little bit differently. You don't like Rebecca because you hate women, and that's fine. You're on the record of saying that, and you signed it, and yeah, just.
Okay, well, Rebecca, in my view, is very much like Abigail, whom I love dearly. So, just for what it's worth.
Okay, that's great. So I don't actually see her as a new Eve. I see her as not being deceived like Eve. So we had 1 Timothy 2 yesterday. Eve was deceived, Adam was not. So here you actually have the reversal where Isaac is deceived, but Rebecca knows what's going on. And so she is the mother. Remember, the woman and the serpent are going to be at enmity with each other. She's protecting the seed. So 1 Timothy has this wonderful phrase, they will be saved through childbearing. And part of childbearing is rearing the children, protecting them growing up. And this is precisely what Rebecca is doing with Jacob. She's the one who ensures that he's going to get the blessing. And so all they're doing is they're deceiving Isaac so that he will see his folly. Because from the word of the Lord, it's going to be Jacob. Problem is Isaac doesn't see it. And then as soon as he does give out the blessing, well, then he finally realizes, you're right, I messed up. Esau, I'm sorry, I don't have another blessing for you. If you want it, you're going to have to go through Jacob. That's what God says.
Yeah. They kind of force his hand. They force him to do the right thing, right? And then it sticks. Because you think about the way that we handle words and promises and covenants, which is, I think, one of the reasons why the chapter is so striking. Because it's kind of like people break their word all the time, right? Till death us do part. Just kidding. That's not what I meant, right? But here Isaac says it, and then he's kind of like, nope, I have to abide by this now.
Right, because one of the questions is, why does this blessing matter so much? Because God said it was going to happen through Jacob. So it's going to happen through Jacob regardless, whether or not Isaac passes on the blessing, right? So even if he does bless Esau, well, that's not what God ordained. So it's not going to happen. This isn't like magical incantation. So just because Isaac says something is going to happen doesn't mean it's going to happen. But it's better if Isaac gets on board.
Right. It's going to happen. It's going to happen because God said so. And so best would be as if Isaac, if he petitions God for what God desires, right? If he utters the prayer that corresponds to God's will, then he doesn't have to say, "Thy will be done." He just gets to say, "Okay, I'm agreeing with you now." It reminds me of Jonah. It's like kicking against the goads and whatever. You're ending up in Nineveh, and they're going to repent, and God's going to get it done with or without you. Better to have it happen with you.
Have you ever felt this way? Have you ever preached to people who you didn't like, and then they end up believing, and then you're upset about it? You're like, man, I really wish they would have walked away angry. I'm so mad that I preached this word of condemnation, and they actually believed it.
Well, okay, so I think to translate, Jonah's experience would be like you're preaching. You preach that sermon, and the people who are not in your congregation hear and believe it. Meanwhile, your congregation is like, I'm so sick of listening to that guy. That's what Jonah's experience is, right? It's like, no, this is not. I want my people to believe.
Right, man. What professors always said they should read Jonah on call day.
Yeah,
that's great. I was going to make a comment about a certain seminary bringing in comfort dogs on call day. And what does that say about the divine call? But you continue.
Well, Esau could use a comfort dog. That's what I'll say. Isn't it interesting that while Isaac evidently stops kicking against the goads, Esau, he's like, no, I'm gonna kill my brother. I'm gonna take care of this problem, right? Which I'm just thinking about the parallel to Cain and Abel, right? Because there is an element of sacrifice. It's not an offering to God; it's an offering to Isaac. Isaac looks on Jacob's sacrifice favorably, does not look on Esau's sacrifice favorably. Esau intends to kill Jacob, but doesn't pull it off. And we know he's not going to. He can't possibly, because of Isaac's blessing, right? Because of the blessing given to Jacob. And yet Esau's like, okay, so think about the contradiction here. On the one hand, Esau wants Isaac's blessing. Give me that blessing. It's such a good blessing. And then at the same time, he's like, no, I'm going to overturn the blessing, right? If the blessing is valuable, if the words mean anything, then you can't overturn them. So he wants them, but he also wants them to be meaningless and overturned through his murder of his brother, right?
He wants to carry on the messianic seed while not believing in the Messiah.
Yes, yeah. Which that's I'm glad you put it that way, because atheism, like the idea that God does not exist, that's not the fundamental problem. The fundamental problem in the world is people knowing full well that God exists and just not having him as God. Not like knowing everything correctly, having all of the information and still going their own way. That's the problem.
Yeah, it all comes back to epistemology. We have a fundamental epistemological quandary when we can look at a guy come back from the dead and still not believe in him.
Yeah, that's right.
He
told us we'd be like that too. Even if someone comes back from it. Just like I met a man who told me everything I ever did.
Yeah, we got Lazarus and Rich Man on Sunday. I'm looking forward to it. Let me say something more nice. Well, no, that's not what let me say something nice again about Rebecca. Verse 13, his mother said to him, "Let your curse be on me, my son."
Yeah.
Only obey my
that's
voice.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that's Judah later in the book of Genesis willing to take on the punishment.
Right. And it's Jesus, of course, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So this idea of substitute is throughout the book, really paramount here with the animal skins. Again, somebody had to die so that the blessing could be taken on, this time animals, but eventually humans. So, yeah, substitutionary atonement.
I love the conversation between Rebecca and Jacob because it's such a classic mother-son conversation. Um, there's this thing that occurs as boys grow older. Maybe you experienced it, uh, or maybe you know of it, that they begin to believe that they're smarter than their mother. And sometime about 13, 14, 15 years old, they begin to be dubious about everything their mother says. So I love this guy. I played this conversation out at the dinner table the other day because it's like it's so classic. Mom says, "Do this thing. Go get me a goat." And Jacob's like, "That'll never work. Dad's gonna see right through it." And Rebecca's like, "No, I'm gonna take care of it. It's gonna be fine. I'm not stupid. You're 13 years old."
That's really good. What do who was the psychologist who wrote all about the dynamics between the siblings and the fundamental choice in your life is where you're born in the pecking order? I can't remember his name, but you remember this conversation, right? Like a lot of your psychological makeup is determined by where you fall in line on the siblings.
Right.
So
Interesting.
I'm the youngest brother, which I always took consolation in because youngest brother always does just fine in the Bible.
That's right. Has had lots of examples to learn from, and usually is too smart for his own good, but does well.
What's that? I didn't catch
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Can we talk about this blessing then that Isaac does give to Esau? Because this is ambiguous. 39:40. Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, and away from the dew of heaven on high. Well, that's bad. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. But when you go restless, you shall break his yoke from your neck.
So the first part is a direct corollary of the first part of the blessing to Jacob, right? Fatness of the earth, dew of heaven. You can't have those, right? All right. But by the sword you shall live. By your sword you shall live. Did he make a promise of peace for Jacob? Not really. But service by the nations, right? So if Esau is going to if he's going to find a way in the world, it's going to have to be he's going to have to cut his own path, right?
Right. And is this a good thing or a bad thing at the end? You shall break his yoke from your neck. I mean, I'm hearing echoes of Matthew 11. Jesus says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." So is this a good thing or a bad thing to break the yoke from Jacob?
Certainly not, right? Because it's his appointed place. Like if he would be content to serve his brother, then everything would be fine, right? Because he'd benefit from the blessing. Blessed are those who bless you, right? And cursed be everyone who curses you. So when you break the yoke from your neck, you're depriving yourself of the blessing.
Right. On the other hand, he probably sees this as something good. He's like, well, I'm going to be free.
Yeah. So how does that play out historically? Just thinking about, you brought up Herod the Idumean last time. He certainly has thrown off the yoke of Jacob, right? He's mingling the blood of those Jews with their sacrifices, right? Not is it the same Herod? Well, one of the Herods.
Well, that was Pilate, wasn't it?
Pilate. Oh yeah, that's right, Pilate. That's right. Does Herod do anything other than murder the baby boys in Bethlehem? That's breaking off the yoke.
He's manipulated into beheading John the Baptist.
Yeah. I guess the Herod the Great with the slaughter of the innocents. That's probably the active, throwing off the yoke. Right. I don't want to serve that king. I'm the king. Right.
Right, and it's a direct attack on the seed again because he's trying to. Yeah, I mean, Satan really takes over the Edomites. I mean, so it's a constant thing. They don't let the Israelites go through their land, and they get cursed in the prophets for that.
Yeah, what is Obadiah is a oracle against Edom. He gets short shrift.
Yeah, all those minor prophets do. Who's your favorite minor prophet?
I really like Malachi. I like the form of Malachi, the dialogue that's going on in there. God says, "I've loved you," and you say, "How have you loved us?" Right? I love that. I read, and I was in there's a lot of useful things. So Amos chapter 5 just the other day, by the by, I ran into this passage that I found really useful for thinking about when people say of their loved ones, well, they're in a better place. Amos chapter 5, it says, woe to you, this is verse 18, woe to you who desire the day of the Lord. Why would you have the day of the Lord? It is darkness and not light, as if a man fled from a lion and a bear met him. What a great picture. You died. You think you escaped your suffering in this life and some worse suffering, or went into the house and leaned his hand against the wall and a serpent bit him. Isn't that just a phenomenal picture? It's incredible.
Yeah, and there's a lot of symbolic weight to all of those animals, right?
Right.
Huh.
Who's your favorite?
Zechariah.
Mm.
There's apocalyptic imagery. I got the red horse, fiery horse. But then Zechariah 14, Feast of Booths. And you got this great image of the Mount of Olives is mentioned there. A great, awesome day of the Lord. His feet will be on the Mount of Olives. And then you got the rivers, an eternal river flowing out of Jerusalem. And then every day they would come up for the Feast of Booths for an eternal feast. And if you refused to go, then you would be excluded.
Yeah, that's good. Booths and all of the feasts are focused on God's provision, right? He's the one. I saw there's this passage in Zechariah 10 that has always stuck with me since I started trying to grow grass in a field. It talks about asking the Lord for the rain in the early season, in the early spring. Ask for the rain, and don't put your trust in the household gods. Which, this is the theme of the Feast of Booths, is that you can dwell in booths, but the Lord is with you, right? You can be sojourners, and God is the one taking you to a promised land. But if you begin to inquire of the household gods, or put your trust in what you can provide for yourself, so this is what I discovered, is that my inclination was to pray for rain only after it had failed to rain when I wanted it to, instead of asking for rain before I needed the rain, knowing that unless God provides it, it's not going to come. It doesn't happen all on its own. God has to provide it, right? And then I thought about the household gods, because of course, when I'm waiting for rain, I'm constantly looking at the radar and trying to figure out when the rain is going to come. And I realized that the weather underground is a household god. I love Zechariah for that reason.
That's your preferred weather app?
It is, yeah.
I think that's one my wife uses. See, we always have an argument. This is great because we use different weather apps. She's like, "It's going to rain today," and I go, "No, it's not." But I'm just lazy, and I use the default Apple weather, which it's got the detractors. But no, that's great. I mean, it all comes back to trusting God, right? It's really simple.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Huh. Good. What else you got about Isaac and Rebecca?
Well, we got Laban coming up, but we'll be able to talk about him plenty in the next chapters. So I guess if you don't have anything else, I was going to ask you what grinds your gears.
What grinds my gears? Yeah, so that question is always such a negative question for me. It doesn't mean that. Yeah, that in the Family Guy sense it does. But when I asked you what grinds your gears last week, you told me something really positive. So I think maybe it could be a more open question, right?
Yeah, if you had some oil to it, it's just a what have you been thinking about? What gets your gears going? What are you reading? Or I mean, if anything really makes you upset, tell me.
What am I reading? So let me tell you what I'm reading. That'll be fruitful. So I've got a Dorothy Sayers novel that I wanted to assign to my kids, and I wasn't sure if they'd be able to handle it. And actually, in fact, the dialogue at the beginning is super fast paced. But that's part of it is it's a literary device to set the scene in a advertising office. So the novel's called Murder Must Advertise. And it's complex because you start out assuming that the characters are very basic murder mystery characters, but there's actually far more going on, including that the lead character is not interested in solving the murder, but is interested in exploiting the murderer, blackmailing the murderer, in order to, whatever, get something out of him. There was a great line in there about advertising. Yeah, I almost sent it to you, but I didn't get around to it. It said something like the two copywriters were having this conversation, and they were saying, one of them said, it seems like we're manipulating the public in this way. We tell them all the things that are bad for them, and then we give them the cure for all of the things that are bad for them. And the other copywriter said, I got to find the quotation exactly, but the other copywriter said something like, no, but see, in the process of doing that, we're creating all kinds of jobs. And, and it was so spot on. It was great. It's like, we're going to tell you that these things are making you sick, and here's the remedy for these things that are making you sick. And in the process, we create jobs. It was great. It was a great line.
Well, that sounds great. I got a couple questions. First of all, if you were a literary device, what would you be?
I'm gonna have to think about that. I wish I had a quick answer.
Okay, well, you can think about it. Second
I'd be a flat, one-dimensional character that's just a stock figure. That's what it would be.
So you'd be Kristen Stewart in Twilight.
Thank you. I have no idea what that means. Yeah.
We all learned from Jacob and Esau that you know what that is. You are Team Esau, and it disgusts me, but I'm willing to chat with you and convert you. Second thing is, everybody, you guys need a friend like David and I, our friendship, because best part of my day is him sending me a picture of the book that he's reading, and the best part of it is there's usually a part of his finger, and my favorite nickname for David is Teen Wolf. He's got, I mean, it's incredible the amount of hair follicles he has on his fingers.
Thanks for that, Josh. I've been gifted with hairy fingers. Yeah.
So yeah, just so you know, when you send me the pages, half of it's reading it, half of it's just analyzing your fingers.
That's terrible. That's disgusting. You should find something better to do with your time.
Well, you need a better cell phone camera, because like half the time the words are blurred. I'm like, what did he scan this on?
All right, what's grinding your gears? Tell me what you're reading right now.
So I read a New Yorker profile last night on what's her first name? She's a Freud. So Sigmund Freud's great granddaughter. That was interesting. I was like asking what kind of psychological help do you need, being a part of that line. But the one thing that really got me was her dad. His name was Lucian Freud, I guess a famous artist, and had like a dozen or more children with 5 or more different women, and never settled down with any of the moms. And one of his biographers asked him, like, why do you hop around so much? And his retort was, well, don't you know that I owned a bicycle? And yeah, and like, it's one of those lines, like, it's so sad. You chuckle at it, but that just shows you the depravity of humanity.
Right. It's what is it? It's mortuary humor, right? If you didn't laugh at it, you'd be just like, I mean, that guy's a monster, right?
That's right. And then kind of have a family read together loosely with my wife and some of my in-laws. We're currently reading Walden by Thoreau, and my one question is I can't find him. I mean, I'm looking for this guy in a red and white sweater, and he has yet to make an appearance on the page.
I remember reading Walden, but what do you mean, this guy in the red and white sweater? He's just making observations about all the world around him, right?
No, the question is, where's Walden?
Oh, Waldo. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We're too slow.
You walked into that one.
That was too subtle for me. I need you to be more obvious. Okay, so in all seriousness, though, your reaction to Walden is of great interest to me. What do you make of it?
Well, like there's much to say about transcendentalism, because it's one of America's unique contributions to philosophy. So there's a lot I disagree with him on. obviously, because transcendentalism comes out of the Unitarian movement, so it's this wholesale rejection of the triune God. But he's got some really great critiques of society. I've got my handy dandy notebook here. I got so many quotes on universalism. I'm sick. You need to you need to help me. Maybe I should start reading some orthodoxy. That might make me better. Ooh. Okay, here's a good one on the education system. You'll like this. So he's talking about the impracticality of education. He says they're taught only political economy, not living economy. And the consequence is that while he is reading Adam Smith, Ricardo, and say those are economists, he runs his father in debt irretrievably.
Good. That's really good.
It's great. Yeah, great quotes. And then here's another great quote. He says, "While civilization has been improving our houses, it has not equally improved the men who are to inhabit them." So he's sharp guy, and lots of great quotes. Very, very. What's the word I'm looking for when you're looking inside yourself for that inner peace?
Introspective.
Yeah, very introspective.
Yeah. I was reading Thoreau at the same time that I was reading Jack Kerouac, and so I was in a very it was a weird space in high school.
Were you listening to Yellow by Coldplay at the same time?
I was. Yep, that was also happening at the same time.
Yeah. You would have been a sappy fan. That would have been fun. Yeah, his philosophical notion of time we have to disagree with, although it's profound if you're kind of into these things. He's like the moment you're in now is one eternity meeting another eternity and coming together. Which of course we can't agree with because we don't agree in the pre-existence. Like time has a start finite point and then it goes on for infinity. But so if you but I thought, that was kind of cool to think about.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed.
Hey,
he built a house for what, $26?
Yeah, right.
It was,
well, that was so. I don't think I was thinking about philosophy when I read him. I was just thinking about how I wanted to live in the woods in a hut by myself and not be around people.
That's fair. That's fair. But yes, you can go ahead.
I found this quotation from Murder Must Advertise that I think you'll appreciate it. All right, so the lead character says, "I think this is an awfully immoral job of ours," talking about writing copy for an advertising agency. "I do, really. Think how we spoil the digestions of the public." And his conversation partner replies, "Ah, yes, but think how earnestly we strive to put them right again. We undermine them with one hand and build them with the other. The vitamins we destroy in the canning, we restore in Revito. The roughage we remove from Peabody's Piper Perich, we make up into a package and market as Bunbury's breakfast bran. The stomachs we ruin with Pompane, we reline with peplets to add to digestion. And by forcing the damn fool public to pay twice over, once to have its food emasculated and once to have the vitality put back in again, we keep the wheels of commerce turning and give employment to thousands, including you and me." It's so great. I love it.
Oh, that is really good. To answer my own question, if I was a literary device, I would be alliteration.
Illiterate, you would be. That's true. You would love Murder Must Advertise for that reason, because so many of the lines are about the copywriters coming up with alliterative headlines for their products.
I could probably get this from the library. The best part about you not living in the state and in the same library system as me is now I can check out any books I want, and I don't have to wait 3 weeks on you to return the book. And the best thing that ever happened to you is when they stopped the fines, because you were like, "Oh, no punishment. I'm going to hold on to these books."
It's a very different life for us here. I'm terrified of the fines. They're steep in Arkansas, but they also automatically renew my books for me when I'm getting close to the due date. So that's nice.
That is nice. Should I read any Stephen King? I haven't.
You should read Stephen King's book on writing. His it's kind of like it's not a memoir. Maybe it's like Why I Write or something, or How I Write. What's it called?
Is it a memoir of the craft?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that was very good. I've never read any Stephen King, and I don't care to. I'm not a big fan of.
Well, as a human being,
genre.
he doesn't really strike me as somebody I would agree with. But I was, when you're in high school, you like the movies, and you can tell there's a universe that he built, which is intriguing.
And that's what's interesting about this memoir is that the way he handles that universe, which is disturbing and grotesque and godless, and I think frankly destructive. The way that he talks about it is so nonchalant that my conclusion is that he's got some sort of psychopathy going on, because it's just like, how can you do that? How can you handle these subjects the way that he does without, like with such nonchalance?
Great. We'll have our marketing people reach out to Stephen King and see if he'll come on for an interview.
That'd be great.
That'd be awesome. So, Mr. King, if I can call you that, Sir King, come on the CloudCast.
We could get him to talk about Genesis 28 with us. That'd be a lot of fun.
That sounds great. Okay, we have a guest lined up. We'll see on the timing on these things, but it'll be much fun.
Hey, this does raise maybe this is kind of risky to say, but if any of our listeners have a qualified guest that they think would be interesting for us to read the Bible with, I'd be interested in suggestions. Not going to necessarily take any suggestion that you give, but we're looking for fun people to talk to on the podcast about the Bible. So you got somebody, let us know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great. Yep. Send in your questions. Hey, thanks. This was fun.
All right. Good one, Josh. I'm hitting stop. Trying to.
Ain't no podcast like a David Josh podcast, because a David Josh podcast don't stop.
Well, I don't know what I might have to refresh this page here. Hang on. Oh, that's threatening me that I might not save if I do that.
Oh no.
None of the buttons are working. So yeah, I'm gonna quit this and come back and make sure it's all good. So all right, adios.
See ya.